Have you ever looked at an elderly loved one and felt like something is different, but you just couldn't explain why? Maybe they're eating less, tiring more quickly, or growing quieter in ways they never did before. At first, it's easy to dismiss these changes as just part of aging. But what if they're not? What if these small shifts are actually silent warnings? The body's way of whispering a message that too often goes unheard until it's too late? The truth is, death doesn't always come suddenly. For many elderly individuals, the body starts signaling its final chapter months, even a year in advance. Recognizing these signs early isn't about fear. It's about love. It's about having time to prepare, time to ensure comfort, time to say what needs to be said before it's too late. Today, I'm going to reveal 5 key warning signs that may indicate an elderly person is in their final year of life. Some of these signs are obvious, but ignored. Some are so subtle they go completely unnoticed. And sign number 4? It's the one that most people miss, yet it could be the most important of all. By understanding these signs, you won't just be observing changes, you'll be truly seeing what's happening and ensuring your loved one gets the care, respect, and love they deserve in their remaining time. So stay with me until the end, because this knowledge could change the way you approach your time with the people who matter most. Now, let's begin with the first sign. Sign number 1, sudden weight loss. The body is rejecting food. Have you noticed this subtle change? Take a moment and think about the last time you hugged your elderly loved one. Did they feel smaller, frailer, almost as if they were slipping away? Or maybe you've noticed that their clothes no longer fit the way they used to. The belt that once fit perfectly now needs another notch. Their favorite sweater drapes loosely over their shoulders. At first, you might chalk it up to normal aging, but unexplained weight loss is rarely just a coincidence. It's not just about numbers on a scale. It's the body's way of saying, I'm changing. I no longer process food the way I used to. And that change can be one of the first quiet warnings that someone may be in their final year of life. The science behind this sign. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at absorbing nutrients. For some, this decline is gradual, but for others, it happens suddenly and noticeably. The digestive system slows down, making it harder for the intestines to pull vitamins and minerals into the bloodstream. Muscle mass starts to disappear rapidly, making movements like standing up or walking increasingly difficult. The sense of taste and smell weakens, making food less enjoyable, and eating more of a chore than a pleasure. What's more alarming? Even if they're eating the same amount, their body may not be processing the nutrients effectively. This is why weight loss can be an early warning sign of a weakened immune system. The onset of chronic conditions like cancer, kidney failure, or heart disease. The body slowly shutting down and preparing for a transition. Eleanor's story, when the signs were missed. Eleanor was 82. Her family always knew her as someone who loved food. She never turned down dessert, and she always asked for a second helping at dinner. But then, things changed. She started eating less, only taking a few bites before pushing her plate away. Her favorite meals? They no longer seemed to interest her. At first, her family thought, maybe she's just not as hungry these days. But as the weeks went by, they noticed something more concerning. Eleanor had lost 15 pounds in just a few months. Her once strong arms now looked frail. She had trouble getting out of chairs and felt dizzy often. When they finally took her to the doctor, they learned the truth. Her body was no longer absorbing the nutrients it needed to function properly. It wasn't just aging. It was a sign that her body was beginning its final transition. Why this sign matters. Unintentional weight loss is one of the clearest indicators that something deeper is happening inside the body. It's not just about physical appearance. It's about loss of strength, making everyday movements harder, higher risk of falls, leading to serious injuries. Weakened immune system, leaving the body vulnerable to infections. Recognizing this early allows families to take action, not necessarily to reverse it, but to ensure comfort, proper nutrition, and quality time together. What to do if you notice this? If you see a loved one losing weight unexpectedly, don't assume it's normal aging. Keep track of their eating habits and energy levels. Encourage nutrient-dense foods that are easy to eat, like soups, mashed potatoes, and smoothies. Talk to a doctor. Weight loss could signal an underlying condition that needs attention. Focus on comfort. At a certain stage, forcing large meals can cause discomfort. Smaller portions may be better. Coming up next. But weight loss isn't the only early sign that someone may be in their final year. There's another change, one that affects their energy, their movement, and their ability to do even the simplest tasks. And this next sign? It's something almost every family mistakes for laziness. Let's talk about it next. Sign number 2, extreme fatigue and body weakness. A noticeable shift from active to exhausted. Think about a loved one who once loved working in the garden, spending hours tending to their plants. Now, they simply stand by the window, looking outside, too tired to step out and touch the soil. Or maybe they used to enjoy taking short evening walks. Now, just walking from the bedroom to the living room leaves them breathless. These changes seem small at first, but over time, they become more frequent, more noticeable, and more concerning. What's really happening? It's not just normal aging. It's the body slowly losing its ability to create and sustain energy. Why is this happening? Fatigue in the final stages of life is not the same as the tiredness we all experience from time to time. This is a deep, persistent exhaustion that does not improve with rest. Here's why. The heart isn't pumping as efficiently, meaning less oxygen reaches the muscles. The lungs become weaker, making even light activity feel like a struggle. The body prioritizes its remaining energy, diverting resources to the most essential functions: breathing, circulation, and brain activity, while physical strength takes a back seat. As a result, simple tasks become overwhelming. Getting out of bed in the morning takes much longer. Walking a few steps feels like a marathon. Even sitting upright in a chair requires effort. This isn't just a lack of motivation. It's a biological shift that cannot be reversed. The moment it becomes clear. Margaret, 79, had always been independent. She loved cooking her own meals, organizing her home, and keeping up with her daily routine. Then, small changes started appearing. She stopped preparing big meals and started relying on small snacks. She took more breaks between activities. Then, one day, she called her daughter and said, "I don't know why, but I just feel so tired all the time." A few months later, her daily walks turned into sitting on the porch instead. Then, even going from the bed to the bathroom became a struggle. Her family encouraged her, saying, "Mom, you need to push yourself more." But what they didn't realize was that Margaret wasn't just feeling tired, her body was running out of energy. What can you do? If you see this happening to someone you love, the most important thing to remember is, this is not about willpower. Instead of telling them to stay active or try harder, here's what you can do. Allow them to rest when they need to, without guilt or pressure. Make their environment easier to navigate. Place chairs nearby. Ensure they don't have to walk long distances. Encourage small movements, like gentle stretching or sitting outside for fresh air, rather than forcing long activities. Help them conserve their energy for things that bring them joy and comfort, rather than exhausting them with unnecessary tasks. What comes next? Fatigue is a physical sign of decline, but there is another change that is even more profound, one that affects not just the body, but the mind. This next sign is something many families don't recognize until it's too late. Let's talk about it next. Sign number 3, unusual confusion or withdrawal. When the mind starts to fade, a loved one who slowly becomes distant. There was a time when Mrs. Smith's laughter filled the house. She loved talking to her grandchildren, asking about their day, sharing old stories, and offering words of wisdom. But recently, something changed. Her granddaughter, Emily, called out, "Grandma, remember when we used to bake cookies together?" Mrs. Smith looked at her, smiled softly, but said nothing. It wasn't that she didn't hear. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was something else, something deeper. Her mind, once sharp and full of life, was slowly drifting away. Like a candle burning low. Imagine a candle that has been burning for hours. The flame is still there, but it's weaker, flickering, struggling to stay bright. This is what happens to the mind as the body approaches its final stage. Memories fade, focus drifts, and moments of clarity become shorter. One day, they might seem perfectly fine, laughing and talking as usual. The next day, they may sit in silence, staring at nothing, lost in a world only they can see. Why this happens? The brain, like every other organ, begins to slow down. Here's what's happening inside. The brain receives less oxygen, making it harder to think clearly. The nervous system becomes sluggish, leading to slower responses. The body prioritizes essential functions, like breathing and circulation, over active thought and memory. As a result, you may notice forgetfulness. They repeat the same questions or forget familiar faces. Confusion. They suddenly don't recognize where they are, even in their own home. Silence. They withdraw from conversations, not because they don't want to talk, but because it takes too much effort. The moment reality sets in. For Emily, it was heartbreaking to watch. She used to love sitting with her grandmother, listening to her stories. But now, Mrs. Smith often sat quietly, looking out the window. One day, when Emily reached for her grandmother's hand, Mrs. Smith gently pulled away, not because she didn't love her, but because in that moment, she simply wasn't present. This wasn't just aging. It was a sign that her mind was beginning to let go. How to respond with love and understanding. When you notice a loved one withdrawing or struggling to focus, the most important thing is not to force them back. Here's what you can do instead. Be patient. If they don't respond immediately, give them time. Keep conversations simple. Too many words can be overwhelming. Use touch. A gentle hand on their shoulder can be more comforting than words. Create a peaceful environment. Loud noises and too many people can increase confusion. What comes next? Mental withdrawal is painful to witness, but there is another sign that is even more crucial to recognize early. If there is one change you need to pay close attention to, it's the next sign. Let's talk about it now. Sign number 4, changes in breathing or weakened circulation. Like an ocean wave slowly pulling away. Imagine standing by the shore watching the waves roll in. For hours, they come in strong, steady, predictable. But then, something changes. The waves start retreating, pulling back from the shore, slower, weaker, until suddenly, the ocean feels eerily still. This is exactly what happens to the breath of someone nearing the final stage of life. At first, the change is barely noticeable. Maybe they breathe a little slower than usual, or take more pauses between sentences, but over time, their breath becomes shallower, more irregular. Sometimes it speeds up for no reason, like a final push of energy, only to slow down again into long, drawn-out pauses. What this means: breathing is one of the last functions the body holds on to, but as energy fades, the body starts prioritizing survival, and that means cutting back on anything that isn't essential. Here's what happens inside. The lungs become weaker, struggling to take in air. The heart pumps less blood, meaning oxygen isn't reaching the brain or muscles as easily. The body begins to conserve energy, using only what's absolutely necessary. As a result, you may notice shallow, slow breaths, sometimes with long pauses in between. Moments of rapid breathing, followed by exhaustion. Cool hands and feet as circulation slows down. A pale or bluish skin tone, especially on the fingertips or lips. The moment it becomes clear. James, 85, had always been strong, even in his later years. But one evening, his daughter noticed something. Instead of his usual slow, deep breaths while sleeping, his breathing was suddenly fast and shallow, almost as if he were running a race in his dreams. Then, just as quickly as it started, it slowed down again, so much that she found herself holding her own breath, waiting for his next inhale. This pattern continued for days. At times, he would seem completely at peace, breathing normally. Other times, she would have to lean in, straining to hear if he was breathing at all. The doctors explained, "This is the body's natural way of slowing down. It's not painful. It's just part of the process." For his daughter, it was one of the hardest things to witness, but understanding what was happening gave her the strength to focus on what mattered most, making sure her father was comfortable, at peace, and surrounded by love. What to do if you notice this? If you see a loved one showing these signs, it's important to act with care and compassion. Instead of panicking, here's what you can do. Make them as comfortable as possible. Adjust pillows to help them breathe easier. Keep the room cool and calm. A humidifier can help ease breathing discomfort. Offer comfort, not pressure. Holding their hand, playing soft music, or just sitting quietly nearby can be more meaningful than words. Recognize that this is part of the body's natural process. It doesn't mean they are suffering. It means their body is taking its final steps in its own time. What comes next? Breathing changes are one of the clearest signs that the body is preparing for its final transition. But there is one last sign, the most unmistakable one, that signals the journey is reaching its end. Let's talk about it now. Sign number 5, frequent infections or slow-healing wounds. A doctor's quiet warning. A doctor once shared something with me that I'll never forget. He said, when an elderly person starts experiencing frequent infections, it's often the body's way of saying, "I can't fight anymore." At first, families think it's just a minor cold. Then another infection comes, a UTI, pneumonia, a wound that won't heal. Each one takes longer to recover from, until eventually, recovery stops altogether. Why this happens? As the body approaches its final year, the immune system weakens dramatically. Here's what that means. White blood cells no longer respond effectively, making it easier for infections to take hold. Wounds take longer to heal, because the body isn't repairing itself as quickly. Even minor illnesses, like a small cough or skin rash, can turn into something serious. The common infections to look out for. If someone you love is in this stage, you may notice frequent UTIs, more infections in the bladder and kidneys, chronic pneumonia, a simple cough that lingers and worsens, skin infections or bed sores, wounds that take weeks, even months, to heal, low energy, confusion, or fever. These can be hidden signs of an internal infection. And here's something most people don't realize. Sometimes, An elderly person won't even show typical signs of infection. Instead of a fever, they might just seem more tired than usual. Instead of complaining about pain, they might just become quieter. This makes it easy to overlook. But if infections are happening more frequently, or wounds aren't healing, it's a signal that the body is losing its ability to fight back. A family's hard choice. Helen's father, George, was 88 when she noticed something wasn't right. He had always been strong, but in the past year, it seemed like he was constantly battling something. First, it was a urinary tract infection, then pneumonia, then a small scrape on his leg that refused to heal. Every time he got sick, he took longer to bounce back, until one day, he didn't. Helen found herself in a heartbreaking conversation with his doctor. The doctor said, "At this stage, we have to ask, are we trying to cure what can't be cured? Or are we making sure he's as comfortable as possible?" What to do if you notice this? If your loved one is getting infections more frequently, or if their wounds aren't healing, it may be time to shift focus. Prioritize comfort. Instead of aggressive treatments, focus on keeping them pain-free and at peace. Keep infections from worsening. Ensure good hygiene, hydration, and gentle wound care. Talk to their doctor. Ask about the best approach, not just for treatment, but for their quality of life. What comes next? Now that we've covered all 5 signs, the biggest question is, what should you do next? Because knowing these signs is just the first step. What truly matters is how you use this knowledge to support your loved one in the most meaningful way possible. Let's talk about that now. Now that you know these 5 critical signs, I want to ask you, have you ever noticed these changes in a loved one? Maybe a shift in their energy, their breathing, or the way they interact with the world? If you have, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience could help someone else who is going through the same thing. Someone searching for answers, just like you. And if this video has given you insight or comfort, hit the like button to let us know. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another important discussion about aging, caregiving, and cherishing the time we have with the ones we love. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.